Hello and welcome back to the Hesse Bros Pod. This is week 3 now of the NFL season, 2 weeks down, and we are having a lot of fun that football is back. Brent Hesse right here, Chiefs fanatic, and joining me, my brother Luke, as always, Lions fan. And Luke, wow, what a week 2. We were just talking as we connected. A lot of upsets this week, a lot of games that I don't think a lot of people could have predicted at all. This is the NFL. That's why we love it.
Yeah, not at all. In the NFC, a lot of people's top four teams, the Eagles, Cowboys, Lions, and 49ers, all take a loss. The NFC looks completely wide open, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the season unfolds. And we're all going to be seeing it together. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Well, and then on the AFC side, the Baltimore Ravens, who were coming off that loss to the Chiefs on Thursday night, they seemed like the biggest lock of the week. They were my survivor pick, and they blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead to the Raiders. So craziness ensued. Where do we want to start? What teams are fraudulent and what teams just had an off week?
I feel like the Ravens aren't fraudulent. They're still trying to figure things out, but the Raiders, like they definitely showed a little bit there. So I feel like the Ravens will be fine. The team that I think might be a little fraudulent, I don't know. The Eagles, they're not showing me a whole lot here on offense and especially on defense. The Falcons were still trying to figure out their offense for most of the game, and then the Eagles just don't show fight at the end of the game. And I just really don't think that they have that good of a team this year. At least it's playing together. They have a lot of talent.
Yeah, well, the Eagles, they were one of my upset picks again. I picked the Packers week 1 as underdogs. That one came close. Then I picked the Falcons as underdogs week 2. That one did hit. So hopefully, if you all tailed that one, you got some cash on the Falcons. It did take till the very end. Man, what a finish that was to the week as Saquon Barkley couldn't convert on third down. Then Kirk Cousins turns into a completely different quarterback in prime time, goes straight down the field. The Eagles have no resistance. Drake London gets a touchdown, then a wild celebration, makes Young Hoku's extra point not a gimme. And I think Falcon fans have had nightmares of that kind of situation in the past. Even then, now with the touchback coming out to the 30-yard lines and the Eagles having 2 timeouts, they were in a position to be able to get into field goal range. Pressure on Hurts. He throws a bad ball. Game's over. Falcons cash at plus 200. And that's what I needed because, wow, the rest of my upset picks were not good. Although every other upset hit, I had Titans to win against the Jets and Bears to win against the Texans. And both of those teams also were in the same situation where they had potential game winning or game tying drives late, and neither of them could get it done. So it wasn't like those were bad picks. At least that's what I'm telling myself. They weren't bad picks. They were right there, but ultimately didn't get it done. But Falcons made up for it. And that's my reaction to Monday night.
Oh, for sure. And Jalen Hurts, it just shows that he's not that clutch. All they needed was 20 yards, and he goes and makes a stupid throw whenever they have a timeout left. Like they should be able to get into field goal
Yeah,
range
he just
there.
needed to throw that one away. I mean, he got pressure in his face. It wasn't like that play was going anywhere. But you're right. He could have just gotten that ball out of bounds and lived to fight another down.
Absolutely. And another team I definitely think is fraudulent. I called them out at the start of the year, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This team is all out of sorts. They just lost to Deshaun Watson and the Browns. They looked not good the entire time, and I really don't see a lot coming from this team this year. I think they're going to be bottom dwellers in the AFC for the rest of the year with some really bad teams.
Oh, that one hurts me because Jaguars were my pick in the division. I have to give up on the Dolphins pick in that division because Tua got knocked out. He's on IR. Dolphins season, their season's over, in my opinion. Jaguars, I'm still holding on to just a little bit of hope because I thought the Browns would have a good defense to begin the year, and that was correct. They did play great defense against the Jags. They didn't against the Cowboys week 1, and then we saw the Cowboys be a disaster this week. So it's still so early where you're trying to shake out what teams, what's real and what's not from week to week. It's a small sample size. I still believe in the Jaguars a little bit, but yeah, Deshaun Watson played probably one of his best games as a Cleveland Brown, which is a low bar. He's been really bad since he's been there over the last 2 years, basically. although he's been in and out of the lineup with injuries and suspensions through that time. But yeah, it was a tough one on the Browns. I did not expect them to win. Maybe you have a point on Jaguars. I'm still holding out some hope.
Yeah, well, there you have it. And then, Brent, how are you feeling about that Chiefs game last week? It was a great game in Arrowhead there, and Chiefs were able to barely get it done.
A lot of different emotions. First, the overwhelming emotion, a win is a win, especially when you're playing against a top team in your conference like the Bengals. Give credit to Cincinnati. I expect them to have a great season, or at least a contending season, even coming from 0-2. They've done that before. They were 0-2 the year they beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship and made it to the Super Bowl. So don't count them out. But yeah, a huge win. Mahomes struggled through one really bad pick. Then Cam Taylor Britt made an amazing play on another interception. My boy Carson Steele fumbled, 3 turnovers, and the Chiefs still overcome it. And Mahomes only threw for 151 yards. It was his lowest passing yards total in a game that he went from start to finish in his career. So all that factored in, you lose a turnover battle, 3-1 like that, and your quarterback has one of his worst games of all time, and the Chiefs still find a way to win. That's what it's all about. And that's what the Chiefs just do these days. Now, we can talk about the pass interference. I think it's clearly pass interference on 4th and 16. And it was clearly a foul on 4th and 6 when it was illegal hands to the face of the Chiefs offensive lineman, Wanye Morris, who caught the big man tutty earlier in the game. He made a mistake on Hendrickson, who was a beast for the Bengals all game long at that DN spot. Rashee Rice, though, caught that ball on 4th and 6. That one came back. Then they go right back to Rashee. He's in position to make a catch. Clear pass interference. Butt kicker does what he does, and that's deliver the goods at the end of the game for a 51-yard field goal. And the Chiefs get out of it. Shout out to Mari Connor. He had the scoop and score, and he also had a massive sack the last time the Bengals touched the ball offensively. The last time Burrow had the ball in the game on 3rd and 6, he comes up with a big sack, gives the Chiefs the ball back to have a chance to win. So yeah, it wasn't the prettiest game, but when you're playing against some of the top teams, it's not about style points, it's about winning and losing. And the Chiefs are 2-0. Meanwhile, two of their biggest competitors, the Ravens and the Bengals in the division in the conference, are 0-2. So I'm happy with it, even if it was a little bit dicey throughout.
For sure. And I mean, the Chiefs were able to get it done. That's all you can really ask for. We're going to get into their matchup here in week 3 in a little bit. But first, just to recap the Lions game, it was a rough one, but there's no need to panic. We lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but our defense played so well. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be the defensive player of the year. You can lock that in right now. He's
Hey,
already the
second in
betting
the voting.
favorite. Yeah, no, he's right there, and he had 4.5 sacks that game. Baker Mayfield is always under pressure. If you don't double him, he's going to get around any tackle in the league. This dude's an absolute beast, and with that type of pass rush, along with already having one of the best rush defenses in the league last year and continuing this year, it's going to be scary once that offense gets going. And going 1 for 7 in touchdowns in the red zone, it's going to be hard to win the game, especially when Goff is out there just throwing stupid picks. We're going to get that cleaned up. It's Detroit Lions. We just needed that loss, kind of. I feel like just to get the grit going and be ready to go here for the rest of the season. So I'm not worried about it, and the Lions are certainly not worried about it. Dan Campbell's going to have the boys fired up, and it's no big deal there.
Losing at home, though, is a concern. Now, the Chiefs were very close to doing it themselves, so can't be too hypocritical. But what were the issues for the Lions in the red zone and Jared Goff? Of course, I followed that game as well. Big game between two playoff teams from last year, a rematch from last year's playoffs. So even though that 1 o'clock window was crazy with 10 games going on, that was one of the biggest ones. And it was close throughout. Lions, though, just couldn't get it done in the red zone. And Goff did make some untimely mistakes, although other than his turnovers, I thought he played well. How do you fix those issues?
So the Detroit Lions threw the ball like 56 times on Sunday. We can't be doing that. Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery is the best duo in the league. We need to keep feeding them the ball. I don't know why we go away from it. Ben Johnson was just calling some weird stuff, the offensive coordinator. just throwing the ball way too much. And we're not even throwing to Laporta either. It's just we either lock in on St. Brown, we get Jamo involved, or it's just like out of sorts right now, really. Jared Goff just we can't be putting that much weight on his shoulders. He needs that consistent run game and then open up the play action pass. Get the ball underneath to Laporta, who hasn't been involved yet, and they'll figure all that out. It's still early in the year, and there's a lot to work on. I feel like that's really the main issues. And then Goff, as long as he's protected, he's going to play well. This is one of the worst games of his career, and I think it's because we actually tried to rely on him so much because the Buccaneers secondary was so beat up. We thought we could throw all over them, which we kind of did. I mean, we had so many yards, like it was like
There's just
400
bend but
something
not
yards
break for the
total.
Bucks.
Exactly. And so we were able to move it down the field, but just relying too much on Goff's arm is not going to work. And we still should have won that game. Dan Campbell admitted that he messed up on the field goal to end the half.
Yeah, he was
And then
crying.
if we would have had that field goal, obviously he told the field goal unit to run out instead of knowing that we were going to clock the ball and be able to run them out later after the clock was stopped. And then we would have been able to kick a field goal late in the game and win that one. But it is what it is. Just early mistakes or mistakes early in the year, but it's nothing we can't bounce back from.
Yeah, and there were two chances late in the game for the Lions to kick a field goal. So you're right. They definitely had their opportunities late and left some points on the board. Okay, well, we'll do a little bit of game of fraud, good, or fluke. Okay, and this
Let's
Lions
do it.
Bucks game. I know you're not calling the Lions a fraud. Are the Bucks good, or was it a game of fluke? Are the Bucks legit? Are they a playoff team again? Are they another contender to be in the divisional round?
I do think the Bucks are going to make the playoffs this year. The NFC South is looking a little bit more formidable than a lot of people thought, and I think two teams will be able to make it out of there in the NFC, especially just with how wide open it is. It's really hard to tell right now, but I do think that the Bucks will be one of those teams in there. They have Baker, who's playing exceptionally, and then once their defense gets healthy again, if that's possible, like in the next few weeks, they're definitely going to be playing better as well. Chris Godwin is playing out of his mind. I think he's one of the top wide receivers in yards already this year, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. But I do think the Bucks make the playoffs. They're a good team.
I agree. I think Bucks are good. Next one, Cowboys Saints. Cowboys fraud, Saints actually good, or just a fluke game?
I think that's a fluke game right there. The Saints, you don't really know what's going on with that offense. They have a new offensive coordinator. Once a little bit more gets figured out about how to stop Derek Carr, I don't think he's going to be able to play like that the rest of the year.
I think I'm going to go with Cowboys frauds. Not actually a good team. They have choked in a lot of big games, and they've got a big game coming up this week that we'll talk about. But yeah, I'm not trusting the Cowboys. Next one, 49ers, Vikings. 49ers frauds, Vikings actually good, or fluke?
I'm going to have to go with the Vikings are actually good, but the Vikings just always play the 49ers well.
They
You
did.
got to
They beat
look
them
at that.
last year. We even mentioned it last week.
Absolutely. And so sometimes it's just matchup dependent like that. And um, Kevin O'Connell's a really good coach. So it's not really a surprise whenever he's able to pull out a big win like that. But I just don't know if they'll have the consistency throughout the whole year to be a double-digit win team with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. So I think they're a good team, but I think around 500 for them. 49ers will still end up getting a lot of wins this year.
Yeah, I think that one is the fluke game. J. Jeff had a 97-yard touchdown, which was massive, but I don't see the Vikings being able to put together a great season. Although Darnold is looking good, I think they will be about average, and I think the 49ers will be fine. So that is my fluke game. Another one that it was actually not an underdog winning, but one that you did not suspect. So got to get your input. Cardinals, Rams. Cardinals actually good, Rams frauds, or a fluke?
100% fluke. The Rams offense is all backups at this point. They lost both their top two receivers and their entire offensive line. Matt Stafford is probably going to die next week with how many hits he's going to be taking with this like nothing offensive line. It's going to be rough for the Rams. They're just unlucky and they're going to be bad the rest of the year. And the Cardinals were able to take advantage of that early, and it just turned into a blowout. Not a whole lot you can take from that game.
Well, there's for me. Arizona actually good. They proved it for sure. If you watch those highlights, Kyler Murray is nice with it. And especially when he gets a wide receiver like Maserati Marv down the field, who made some amazing plays. And even when it wasn't going to Marv, whether it was going to McBride, they had a couple of plays to Michael Wilson and some other guys. And when Kyler just took off and ran, I was really impressed with the Cardinals. Like I said, I have them making the playoffs, and my confidence is at a nice level right now in that game. Well, any other week one or any other last week two matchups that we haven't discussed before we move on?
The final fraud is Caleb Williams and the Bears. They suck. It's awesome. Their offensive line is terrible. And Caleb Williams is just running around, throwing the ball to the other team, painting his nails. I mean, what can he do right? Nothing. I mean, this is just too good of stuff right here. The Texans are a great team. I think they showed it, even though they're only able to win by 6. The Bears have a great defense, but it's just fun to see that Bears offense struggle like they always do.
Bears offense is struggling massively. Nothing I can say about that. But the defense gives me a lot of confidence. The fact that how bad Caleb Williams was, another game where he didn't throw a passing touchdown and had 2 interceptions, still with a chance at the end of the game, only down 6 to have a game winning drive. Of course, didn't come close to it, but giving him that chance, that just shows how good this Bears defense is, holding the Texans to 19 points gives me a little bit of confidence. I will say, of course, I've lost confidence in the offense over the first 2 weeks, but the defense is better than I expected. So I picked the Bears to win the division and make it to the conference championship game. That is looking bleak, but I still, right now, I believe the Bears are plus money to make the playoffs, and I would be on that one, especially given the looks of some of these other NFC teams. Well, that'll pretty much cover it for week 2. Let's move on to this week. Thursday night game is Jets Patriots. We don't have to go into that one too much, if at all. I was almost right on the Jets. I still think they are a bad team. Titans, just Will Levis did it again, man. How did he do it again? All you have to do is just not make the worst play of the week, and they might be 2-0. If Will Levis just doesn't have the worst play of week 1, and besides Tua's pick 6, which was the Will Levis replay that he did before he got knocked out, then he made the worst play of week 2. When they're in field goal range, they're 3rd and goal. Just hold on to the ball, kick the field goal. When you're up 7-0, go up 2 scores. The game, neither team led by 2 scores the whole entire game. It was back and forth between the Titans and Jets. You can go up 10 points. Instead, you try to lateral the ball back when you're getting sacked, fumble it. I mean, that was sickening. But yeah, I just think that the Jets are an average team. Patriots, once again, played well. They took Seattle to overtime. I like Patriots to cover the 6.5, the 6 points, whatever it is. But that won't be one of my favorite plays of the week. It's just a blag game for me for 2 below average teams. Jets are obviously better than the Patriots, but not by 6 points.
This is definitely a difficult one to bet on. It's still hard to know what you're going to get with the Jets at this point. Not a whole lot of analysis there.
Yeah, so we'll talk about some of the other games coming up on Sunday. What are the games you want to talk about?
So a really good one in the 1 o'clock window is the Chargers at Pittsburgh. I believe the Chargers are going to be able to get it done here. The Steelers love to just hover right around 500 all year. They started out 2-0, and it's time for them to take a loss. The way that the Chargers can run the ball is the way to get past the Steelers defense. You don't want to let TJ Watt just be able to, I guess, just tee up the quarterback every single play, getting back and passing downs. That's not what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. They're going to be able to run the ball at least somewhat effectively and be able to put up enough points on these Steelers to beat them.
Yeah, this is a really interesting game for me for a couple of reasons. Steelers offense has not looked good at all through the first 2 weeks, but they're 2-0 because of the defense and because they played the Broncos last week. Meanwhile, the Chargers are also 2-0. They got a free win this week against the Panthers. If you played the Broncos or the Panthers, as long as you're an actual NFL team, we talked about the teams that aren't NFL teams. If you're an NFL team, you beat the Broncos and the Panthers. So they each got one free win. Steelers look good against the Falcons on the road. At least their defense did. And the Chargers, I guess you got to give them some credit to beating the Raiders since the Raiders did beat the Ravens, but that win didn't really impress me much. So both teams are 2-0, but have a lot to prove. But also, they both have really good coaches. I think Harbaugh, he's been in the NFL before. He's obviously proven it at college level and had a good run with the Niners. And yeah, he's making them look a lot better just because they're not making the mistakes that Chargers usually beat themselves. They're not doing that. And Mike Tomlin, somehow he's doing it again. He's had a winning record every year for like the last decade. And it looks like he's going to be on his way to doing it again. Interesting game. Now, Herbert is a little beat up. He's got that plantar fasciitis, and then he hurt his ankle against the Panthers. So if he plays, I will be taking the Chargers, and I'll be taking them as underdogs right now. They're underdogs against the Steelers. So that is something that I'll definitely be on. Obviously, if he doesn't play, I'll be taking the Steelers. Even though they just run the ball so much, I think that'll be the difference in the game. But yeah, I do lean Chargers in that one. Although I think both teams still have some questions to prove. And I don't know if playing each other is going to prove it.
That'll definitely be an interesting one. And moving on next to the Eagles and Saints. I feel like this is one where the Eagles get it back, even though I do think that they are somewhat fraudulent. The Saints are just riding way too high right now, playing above like their skill level. And so it's time for some regression. The Eagles are the perfect team to be able to give them that and be able to steal a win from the Saints at home, or the Saints that are at home. Right now, the Eagles are 3-point underdogs. I just think that's way too many points to be given this Eagles team. They're clearly the more talented team, and the Saints have a veteran roster too. They're one of the oldest rosters in the league, so that means they're going to start out the year a lot better than other teams that are still figuring out things with young players. But now that the season is starting to get into the full swing here, you're going to see more talented teams rise to the top, and I think that's what the Eagles are going to do here in Week 3.
Yeah, now this might be my favorite bet of the weekend, which is crazy because I've bet against the Eagles when they've been favorites each of the last 2 weeks. Mixed results, obviously. They did beat the Packers. They did lose on Monday night, but I like the Eagles a lot in this spot for a lot of the same reasons you just said. Saints do look impressive. Now, their defense always has been pretty good, and they turned Dak over again, like with the other teams we just talked about. They played the Panthers, so they got a free win. They're really just 1-0 if you think about it like that. They beat the Cowboys. Their other win doesn't really count for anything. The one thing that does concern me is they do have a new offensive coordinator. That's the only thing they changed. Their personnel is pretty much the same from last year, same head coach, but the offensive coordinator is making this offense look way more dynamic. I mean, Kamara looks 3 years ago. Olave, I think he's a great player. He's looking good. And Rashid Shaheed is breaking out. And you can't argue with really any of those three things. But I still think Derek Carr is Derek Carr. They've got the worst quarterback in the matchup. They've got the worst coach in the matchup, although I'm not a big fan of Sirianni. I think it's easy bar against the Saints to beat. And maybe the Saints do have a better defense, but I think that I will take the Eagles in that one. I'll take plus money. So that's two underdogs that we've already discussed, Chargers and Eagles, that we both seem to like.
All right, now moving on to a favorite that I like, the Houston Texans going to Minnesota as 2-point favorites. I think that it's time for the Vikings to have a loss here. The Texans have shown me in these first 2 weeks that they are a top 5 team in the league, and I just don't think that the Vikings stack up against that. CJ Stroud's going to be able to throw all over this Vikings team. That has their defense has shown a lot, but if it weren't for a 98-yard touchdown against the 49ers on like a blown coverage, basically, they would have lost that game. And this line would be a lot bigger for the Texans. So I definitely like the Texans going into Minnesota and getting this W. CJ Stroud, I think, is on his way to at least getting some MVP votes, if not winning the MVP this year.
Whoa, winning the MVP, that's a lot right there. But I can't really push back or even add more to that one. Texans, I like that one. On the road at Minnesota. Yeah, give me that one. Any other games you want to talk about before we get to Lions and Chiefs?
Real quick, I know that the Rams are completely beat up and the 49ers are coming off of a loss. They're they're 7-point favorites right now. And I just love the 49ers in this spot. They love blowing out teams. They're not going to let up on this depleted Rams offense. I see the defense wanting to get some get back like they did or from last week. And so I think that they're going to completely stop this Rams team on offense. And Purdy's going to have a great game through the air against this Rams defense.
So you'll even take -7?
Oh, absolutely. I might even tease that up to 14 because this team is going to destroy the Rams.
Yeah, that's where I have some problems. Yes, the Rams might be the most injured team in terms of total number of starters that are out already this year, but it's a division matchup. Niners are on the road. It's still Matthew Stafford. And even though he's out Puka and Cup, let's not act like Purdy isn't out Debo and McCaffrey. And I think we've seen in the past when Purdy doesn't have all his weapons, he has struggled to win games. Last year, they had that 3-game losing stretch that all coincided with them losing a couple of those guys. So if it's just Ayuk and Kittle as their main weapons, of course, Jordan Mason's having a great season, but that's just the Shanahan scheme. I think McVay and Shanahan are two of the top 5 coaches in the league. I'll take 7 points. If I can get 7 points at home with Matt Stafford against a 49ers offense that I think is not at obviously not at full strength, and I think that's going to affect them. I like the 49ers to win this game, but there's injuries on both sides. And while I did call that a fluke loss, I do think that the Niners not having McCaffrey and now they don't have Debo is going to play a big factor in this game. I'll take the Niners by winning by anywhere from 3 to 6 points, but I'll take the Rams to cover in that one.
It will be an interesting game to see how these offenses collide. Two great coaches with depleted offenses, like you said. But I think that Purdy shows a little something here, gets the ball to his weapons. They still have Juwan Jennings too. Should have been the Super Bowl MVP if they were able to get that one done. People forget about him. But yeah, I think that the 49ers get this one done. And now moving on to the Detroit
Well,
Lions.
before you do that, let me give you my other upset picks. So we already talked about 2 of them. My upset picks went 1 for 3 last week, but that's all you need to be even because it was Falcons plus 200. So if you bet that, you're exactly even on the underdogs. My only other pick I gave out was Pacheco over rushing yards, which was a hit. So if you just followed my picks, you won money last weekend. And I also sneakily late added Malik Willis under passing yards because it was just way too high. And that was another easy hit. But other matchups that I like underdogs in, I already talked about the Eagles. We already talked about the Chargers. There's 2 more I like. Chicago Bears on the road in Indianapolis. Give me them as underdogs against Anthony Richardson. If you can't beat Malik Willis, how are you going to be able to beat Caleb Williams? Bears defense is better than the Packers defense. I like the Bears. Maybe I'm just going to keep riding with them until they show me something. But they were right there. They were a possession away against the Texans on the road. Colts are not the Texans, and the Bears are underdogs. Caleb Williams has struggled. Yes, I get that. But he's going to get better. This is not his final form in week 2 of his first NFL season. He's going to take another step forward. He won't have 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Maybe he won't play great. Maybe he still won't play great, but he doesn't have to play great to beat the Colts, as the Colts showed last week when Malik Willis was able to do it with under 150 passing yards. So, Bears, that's a money line pick I like. There's one more I like, and it is the Arizona Cardinals at home against the Detroit Lions. Kyler Murray looks electric. Lions' first road game of the season. Lions 1-1 so far, both at home. One of those took overtime. The other one they lost. So Yes, Lions first time on the road. I still think the Lions are a great team, but Arizona in the desert and Kyler Murray and Maserati Marv, those are my four underdogs of the week. Eagles, Chargers, Bears, and Cardinals outright winners.
The Cardinals are not going to beat the Detroit Lions this weekend. The Lions have the grit in their hearts. We're not going to lose two games in a row. We haven't done it. We did not do it at all last year, and it's not going to happen this year. That loss late in the game with that many mistakes that the Lions had last week, it's just going to like get us ready to get this dub in Arizona. It's the perfect it's the perfect time to be able to do something like that against a team that you think is ascending. Oh, look at all these great weapons that they have. Look at how great Kyler's playing. The Lions defense stepped up big time last week, and they're only going to improve.
How many yards
And
did
Goff,
Godwin have?
all right, they did let Godwin have a deep touchdown, but besides that, the defense was great on third down, and Baker couldn't do anything in the second half. Lions easily should have won that game. And as an absolute lock of the week, the Lions are going to get Sam Laporta more involved here. I guarantee he scores a touchdown this week. That is my lock of the week against these Cardinals. Goff is going to finally be able to get him involved, but mainly we're just going to run the shit out of this ball. It's going to be awesome. David Montgomery, Jameer Gibbs behind that offensive line. We're going to rely on that like we should have last week, and it's going to be getting back to some Lions gritty football. It's going to be beautiful to watch. And we are not scared of those little cardinal birds. Lions eat them for lunch. That's easy. Come on, give me the Lions.
Okay, so you like the Lions clearly, and you like Laporta to score a touchdown. All right,
Yeah.
well, that moves us to our final three games of the weekend, which are the Sunday night and the doubleheader on Monday night. Now, the exciting thing about the Sunday night game is both the Hesse Bros here that you see on the screen are going to be in Atlanta watching live, as it is Chiefs Falcons, and we'll have little Q Dog, our one of our other Hesse Bros, who's a big Falcons fan there as well. Looking forward to that matchup. Chiefs Falcons. I guess I can go first, unless I did kind of steal your thunder on the Lions as I picked the Cardinals upset. So if you want to go first, you can have at it. But I'm ready to reel off if need be.
You know what? I think that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be absolutely ready to go this week. You saw Kirk Cousins starting to get back to what he looked like before his torn Achilles last week towards the end of that game. And I think he's going to be able to continue that against the Chiefs. Burrow had a great game against the Chiefs last week. Maybe not a great game, but definitely a solid game. And the Falcons offense is starting to click. Now, if they just figure out ways to get Bijan Robinson the ball, he is one of the most dynamic players in the league. No questions asked. And it's going to be hard for the Chiefs to be able to stop them. I think it's going to be a great game. And the sports books like the Falcons too. They have the Falcons at plus 3.5 right now. Before the year, you would think that it would be maybe 6 or 7 points in this game. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see. And I do like the Falcons to be able to get this one done, especially because Pacheco, as we all know, is on IR. Do the Chiefs have a running game? And that's something I wanted to ask you, Brent. Are you scared of what the Chiefs offense is going to look like without having Pacheco and having to rely on maybe even Kareem Hunt?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to be there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and I'm going to be holding up this white paper sign that says "Man of Steel" in reference to the Ball State native Carson Steele, who is going to score a touchdown and is going to run all over this Falcons defense. People are going to be like, who is that guy? He's a mix between like a Christian McCaffrey and just an absolute like Derrick Henry form, as he's going to be running down this Falcons team throat. Now, Carson Steele did lose a fumble against the Bengals, but if you watch his limited carries, 7 carries, not actually that limited. And Pacheco came out the very last drive, very last quarter of the game against the Bengals. So it wasn't like Steele was getting these carries after Pacheco was out. They were already using Steele. They're going to be using him a lot I expect him to score a touchdown. I expect him to absolutely steal the show on Sunday night, as he is going to run through this Falcons defense that clearly wanted no parts of tackling Saquon Barkley. Saquon was having a great game up until that drop. And even then on third down, they probably just had to give him the ball up the middle and he would have gotten the first down and it would have been over because they couldn't stop him at any point in the night. I think that is the Falcons' weakness for sure, is their run defense. And I like Carson Steele to score a touchdown. And I'm not too worried about missing Pacheco this week. Now, long term, it sucks. Pacheco hates grass and he's so good at running the football. But this week, Carson Steele is going to be there. Of course, Samaje Perine, I think, is going to be used in passing down situations. I'll be surprised, honestly, if they even elevate Kareem Hunt. He's only signed to the practice squad. And even though he knows Andy Reid's offense, it's a new offensive coordinator. He did play with Mahomes, but it's a lot to come in on 1 week when I think that they have enough confidence in Carson Steele and Samaje Perine, who have had offensive snaps all preseason. Well, Perine didn't have preseason snaps, but had snaps in the first 2 weeks. And for Carson Steele, preseason snaps. I think they're going to ride with those two. Steele on first and second down, Perine on third down, and obvious passing situations. So I'm not too worried about that. And I just think that even though the Falcons won that game, they stole it, right? Like the Eagles were up 6 going in to ice the game, and Atlanta got the ball back and they delivered. But I'm confident that the Chiefs can win this game. The Falcons are not better than either of the first 2 teams the Chiefs have played, in the Bengals and the Ravens. So give me the Chiefs. I want to see this offense kind of pop a little bit. Mahomes got held to 151 yards. You act like the Lions need a bounce back game after a loss. You think Mahomes isn't going to want a bounce back game after 151 yards? Expect him to be able to throw the ball, get this offense rolling. Chiefs might get to 30 this week. I'm going to say 31-20 is the final score. Chiefs over Atlanta. Carson Steele, anytime touchdown, is the play if you don't want to just take the Chiefs and the points.
But Brent, isn't Carson Steele a fullback in college? Is this
No,
dude really a mix between Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry?
yes, because he's not a fullback. He's only listed as a fullback on the Chiefs roster, but he is actually a halfback. He ran for 1,000 yards at Ball State. He ran for a bunch of yards at UCLA. He's used to toting the rock. He's used to catching passes out of the backfield. He's not a fullback. He's only a fullback in size, but he's played tailback his whole entire life. And yeah, he's just going to bring the juice.
All right, well, if you say so, I knew you were going to be on the Chiefs. But who am I kidding? I'm going to be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm firing the Falcons money line. I don't even care. It's going to be awesome. I just hope it's a good, close game, and maybe Kirk Cousins can get it done. He has been better in prime time than he has been earlier in his career. Obviously, he had all those struggles early in his career in prime time. It's quite embarrassing, but I think he's able to get it done, and he's kind of bounced back from that these last few years. I think he has a great game, and it's hopefully it's a shootout in
I,
Mercedes Benz.
I can bring you an extra Chiefs shirt. You can just wear Chiefs. You don't have to bet Falcons. But I guess you have a point. The last time we went to an NFL game together, the only other time we did, the underdog won. It was the Detroit Lions in Arrowhead Stadium, week 1 of last season. So we will see. I'm excited for the game. I think Chiefs by 11, but looking forward to it. Maybe we'll have to do a little bit of a YouTube live beforehand to let all the Hesse Bros fans know what's going on as we're there at Mercedes-Benz. But we can close it out with the Monday night games real quickly. 2 interesting games, Buffalo, Jacksonville, and Cincinnati, Washington. I'll go first. I said last week I'm off Washington after 1 week of us both picking them to win the division. Can I just retract that? The rest of the division looks terrible. Dallas got smoked. Eagles got beat at home. Washington sneakily got a win over the Giants. Maybe it took the Giants field goal kicker getting hurt early, but a win is a win. Do I think the Commanders can beat Cincinnati? I think they can. I won't be picking them, but I will be taking the points. I just think that I'm back on the Commanders just a little bit.
Plus 7.5 is going to be hard to pass up there with the Commanders. Their defense just does not look very good. If the Giants had a field goal kicker, they definitely would have won that game. But I'm going to still ride with the Commanders. I think they do have a chance to win this division, maybe even at 9-8 or 10-7. So I'm riding with them. And then moving over to the other game, a nice little doubleheader here. We've got the Bills hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think this is Josh Allen's time to go crazy again. He loves beating up on the Jags, and I think it's gonna happen again here. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to. I mean, the Bills have a great team, and their run game has really stepped up this year. And it started at the end of last year. I expect that to continue to progress here. I love the Bills in this spot. I think that they destroy the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, our research team, while you said that, I had to do a little bit of research because I didn't think that was correct. Josh Allen is 1-2 in his career against the Jacksonville Jaguars, including last year in that London game. We know Trevor Lawrence loves London, and so do the whole Jaguars. I wish this game was in London because then I would actually take the money line. But no, I think that the Jags are gonna be here. I'm not off of them yet. Josh Allen has played phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. Besides that strip sack he had first quarter against Arizona, the rest of the season, he's probably been the best quarterback thus far. The way he came back, beat the Cardinals, who are a legitimate team, and then against the Dolphins, diced them up, didn't even have to really play the second half. So his numbers aren't great because he's hasn't had to play for parts of the games. But I think that their defense is banged up. They got more injuries against the Dolphins that were already hurt. The passing game is still a question. Josh Allen just hasn't had to throw the ball. I do like Khalil Shakir. I think Keon Coleman can be good. The tight ends are nice, but Jacksonville, I'm giving them one more chance. I will be on their side of it. Between Jacksonville and Washington, I just feel like on Monday night, one of those two teams win. I might just bet both of them. I might just bet them both and be like, one of them two is going to win. But I'll certainly be betting both of them to cover because I think at least one of those two keeps it close. And I expect both of those two actually to play within a one score game of their much heavily favored opponent.
Well, if you're feeling that risky, you can even parlay them, see if you can really make some big bucks on a Monday night.
That's a good call. Maybe you don't have to, I don't know. I either bet the money line on him each or just parlay their spreads. I don't know which one I'll do. I'll probably do one of the two. So maybe I'll let you guys know after Atlanta. We can talk about it after we figure that one out. But yeah, that is the week 3 NFL season. Wow, it's gonna be another fun week.
Absolutely. Y'all are going to have a great time watching all these games, as will us. And I can't wait to be in Atlanta with you, B. Hess. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait. The ATL this week as the Chiefs go down and take over Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Lions look to bounce back against the sneaky Cardinals and a lot of other great games on the docket. Hope you enjoyed the Hesse Bros picks as I am on the Cardinals, the Eagles, Chargers, and Bears as my underdog picks. And my Chiefs pick of the week is Carson Steele, anytime touchdown. Luke, run through some of your top picks and your Lions pick as we close things out.
Absolutely. My favorite picks this week: Chargers, Eagles, Texans. Of course, you got the 49ers going to destroy the Rams. The Lions are going to be able to cover this spread easy, and Sam Laporta is going to get in the end zone. That's what I like this week, and I hope you all have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Hesse Bros signing off. We'll see you next week.